Hello and welcome to the first day of my Vlogmas. So for the last few years I have been doing Vlogmas, which is typically the entire month of December, and posting videos every day. This year that just wasn't something that I could do. There's a lot more going on this year as far as like just a lot of things are changing this year, and so I just don't have as much time or brain power or anything, but I still love Vlogmas and wanted to do something. So I decided to do like a 12 days of Vlogmas, which I know the 12 days of Christmas are actually following Christmas and go into January, but I wanted to do 12 days leading up to Christmas this year to participate in Vlogmas. And this was the first day, so today I thought it would be fitting to do some of my favorite cozy winter reads. So for me, cozy winter reads aren't necessarily books that take place in winter, although a few of these are that, but are just books that tend to be like a little slower, a little more layered, more atmospheric, but just like quieter. They definitely feel different to me than like autumn cozy reads. Those tend to be a lot more like forest based for me, and sometimes a little bit more like spooky. You guys know I don't do horror, and this year I didn't do anything like that because my anxiety was so bad during the autumn. But winter is just more like slow, cozy, you know, like the hygge lifestyle and that kind of thing. So just more like complex, layered, slower, cozy book. So let's get into it. The first series is a very wintry series, but it still fits the slow, cozy feel, and that is the Winter Night series by Catherine Arden, the first book being The Bear and the Nightingale. This takes place in a sort of like fantasy Russia. It's Russia, but there's fantasy elements, so a lot of the Russian folklore mythology that you hear about is real in here, and it is very wintry because Russia, and it's just like cold and atmospheric and magical, and that like Eastern European Russian type of magic that is like cool but also like a little sinister at times, and just very, very winter. I mean, it's called the Winter Night series for a reason. It's very wintry. Then we have The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. The Night Circus would also fit, another complex, more layered, atmospheric book, but I think this one even more so feels more cozy to me. This story is even more expansive than The Night Circus and more complex, and stories within stories and things like that. So both are amazing. Both I love so much, but this one fits more of that like winter feel for me, which is why I'm so glad it was released in November right before the winter for people, because I feel like this is one that you can really just like snuggle up with in a warm blanket, maybe a heated blanket, by a fire with some like tea or cider or hot cocoa or an alcoholic beverage of your choice, and just sink into and enjoy. Then we have a short story collection, and that is The Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I don't necessarily recommend the whole Grisha trilogy because that is so, or like the Grisha verse, because it is more action-packed, like fast-paced, whatever, and those books don't read as like cozy to me, even though they're like wintry at times, you know, like Russian sort of based background and things like that. But The Language of Thorns definitely fits that winter feel to me. It is fairy tales, but it's sort of like I mentioned before, like sort of dark fairy tales, and just like, again, another book that you can sort of just like curl up with and get into and sink into in a way that I don't feel like the rest of the series is quite that like cozy feel that this has. Then speaking of short stories, and my only contemporary pick on here, we have My True Love Gave to Me, which is edited by Stephanie Perkins. This book came out like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and it is a short story compilation of all young adult romances that take place around the holidays. So it has a bunch of different authors in here that are all contemporary authors, and it is just very cute and cozy and holiday and wonderful. So if you're looking for that kind of cuteness, you know, you like watching Hallmark movies or like The Christmas Prince on Netflix, this is right up your alley for that cozy Christmas, wintertime, holiday time feel. And lastly, we have The Golem and the Jinni by Helene Wecker. This is similar sort of to like The Night Circus and The Starless Sea in that it's just like a slower fantasy, but set in our world, and it follows two characters, a golem and a jinni, who are from two different, obviously, types of religious background folklore, and they both end up in New York. I believe it's around the turn of the century. Their paths do collide at one point, but it's just like a slower, atmospheric, again, cozy type of read. It's not necessarily happening in winter. I think it happens during part of winter. This is a book that takes place over a longer period of time, but it's just that kind of like slower, historical kind of setting, atmospheric, cozy, about character interactions and connection and all of those things that I feel like are so good for the winter cold season. So that is it for some of my favorite cozy wintry reads. Comment down below and let me know some of yours, and I hope that you are excited for the 12 days of Vlogmas. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.